So then we are back with the more understandings from the Renewed Covenant from the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of Israel, from the prophets of Yahweh, from the prophets of old, indicating as the time of the end. As we then have reached the time of restoration and the reduction from 2031, there are not very many completion of any prophecies at the moment other than the reduction of time and also the restoration. In terms of then, we know Chinese, they're going to sometime at some point in the very near future, they're going to integrate their system in the world's market, so then each nation can do trade via this electronic computerized system of China. Then can read Revelation the 8th chapter, what it means of the third part of the ships, and the nation then leading this electronic system. So then when you read the 10 chapters later, you find then every nation doing trade with this specialized computer system. That's why it is so then prosperous. As far as then the time of restoration, we understand that China also is going to be involved with providing the nations with the materials more than ever to those nations that are truly broken, such as Syria, for instance, and other countries in the Middle East destroyed by war, and then also Europe. When the euro breaks, then Chinese also is going to give them a help. And precisely the time when the system is going to be implemented, nobody quite know yet, because it depends of a couple of factors. The first then obviously will be our military, U.S. military, retrieving from the world and then giving the Chinese more space for them to do patrols. It would be then the first step, because then in the Middle East area, as the Chinese ships are around, this is going to give them an indication and a desire of trade. And then the other factor is then the euro. More than likely, as the Chinese, they are very cautious. After then they begin to do patrols, they are more familiarized with the expectations of the world, and then responding to UN after giving this space for them to do patrols in the waters. Then it's very easy for a person to understand when then Europe then breaks its monetary system. That's when more than likely the Chinese is going to implement their system. There are many variants of this situation, but since they are very cautious in their dealings, we can safely understand this factor after then they are more familiarized with the patrols and knowing where to go and not to go, and then answering to UN. That's the most important, because then we know their intentions. Then we find Europe then, because they came together and they tried to adhere to each other, as then Daniel the prophet said they would not. And then the monetary system breaking, that's when then the Chinese would come and implement their system. It would be either implementation of their system or then the ruin of Europe, because nobody is interested in Eurozone. They understand there are nations over there absolutely broken, and they have to be then bailed out. And what is the straight-minded nation that would then bail out countries when they don't have any resources? That's why Daniel said some of them are iron, such as Germany, France, for instance, and then the stronger countries, and some of them are weak. Spain, Portugal, and their economies are very weak. And when you are in a monetary system integrated, then what is the country that wants to lend without having safeguards? So the entire system is at jeopardy. So when it breaks, then the Chinese would be the person to come in with their system and making an integration of the entire world's trade market. As far as the restoration, we understand nations then, they should not war anymore. They should be more aware of that it's a time of rebuilding, and then afterwards comes a time of harmony. And there is not another prophecy that is relevant at the moment, not after then the time of harmony then ends, then comes some skirmishes, then it ends at the very end. But then understanding prior of this time, the only major prophecy that we already went through was then the covenant of death, that was then destroyed in 08, at the end of 08, and then 09 ended the rule of Satan 100 plus 10 or 1,000 years of his rulership in the earth. And then we are returning to the truth, back to then the holy cities, and we understand the first holy city is going to be in the land of Cush. That's in Africa. An area of Congo, Rwanda, and Sudan, and then Yahweh tabernacling amongst the fierce. No liar is going to be there, can be sure of it. So then we begin to understand what it means afterwards, people being trained, and the city would be the model of the city first of Yahanan. Going to be the whole restarting of the cities laid waste spoken of by Yeshayahu the prophet. So when you read the 61st chapters, and then your cities laid waste, Yahweh was making a reference of the holy cities. Plain and simple, from then the model given at the desert. So other than these, there are not very many prophecies going on at the moment. You may find then certain layers for later, but at the moment, this is where we are at. Time of restoration, time of work, time of then rebuilding. And then the 2012 December, absolutely nothing is going to take place because the Mayan calendar is then out of precision for 36 months. What they did not understand was the covenant of death, and that's where then the time in prophecy then had halted, because Satan then, he had his 1,000 years then finished. And after around 2008, then knowledge became extremely high. If you do then very nice research, you would find 2008 reached a very high peak of knowledge. So the knowledge would increase and people would go to and fro, and at the same time then the 1,000 years of reign of Satan then was ended. So next month, absolutely nothing is going to take place other than maybe some alignment of planets or some other astronomical lining up, but it won't cause any trouble. Absolutely nothing. I'm going to get up in the morning, go to work, and come back at night. And please stay tuned. Much more coming up.